Welcome to First Impressions. This will hopefully be the first in a series of videos where I listen to an album that's widely regarded as a classic that I haven't been exposed to before. I'll then give my first impressions on it. In this video I'm going to be reacting to Animal Collective's supposed psychedelic pop masterpiece, Merriweather Post Pavilion. Animal Collective is a band with a hugely popular yet polarizing discography. They are also a distinct gap in my musical knowledge. I have only listened to an album of theirs once, Sung Tongs, and that was several years ago. However, I don't dislike them. In fact, I think their style is intriguing. I simply haven't gotten around to checking them out, and Merriweather Post Pavilion seemed like a great place to start. After listening to this record a couple of times, I can definitely appreciate why so many people have called the album a masterpiece. Albeit, despite the difference in sound, it is still pop music. I haven't done any deep research into the music, but I can immediately tell that this is not an expansion of pop music's complexity, but rather an expansion of its sound, likely in an attempt to be more expressive, varied, and original. This is where the album triumphs. Merriweather Post Pavilion is truly a masterful example of experimental pop music. It retains the charm, accessibility, and memorable melodies of pop music, while simultaneously being an atmospheric, masterfully produced, supremely composed, consistent work of art. Unfortunately, there are a couple of shortfalls that have stopped me from labeling this as a classic. My number one complaint is that some songs are just too long. This is a pop album at its core, and pop songs shouldn't have 2.5 minutes of build-up. Pop songs are rarely complex enough to justify that. While this is more complex and layered than most in the genre, it's still easier than it should be to let your attention drift when listening to certain long, drawn-out introduction passages. I love this album's style. The Beach Boys comparison has been made 1,000 times, so I'm going to make two comparisons that stood out to me immediately, and thankfully have almost nothing to do with pet sounds. The first thing that this album strongly reminds me of is Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. The two works share a few themes, notably love, summer, and wilderness. Lyrically, Merriweather Post Pavilion discusses these three things throughout the album and creates a wonderful theatrical atmosphere that almost transports me to the magical forest setting of A Midsummer Night's Dream. The beginning of In the Flowers is a great example of this, as the introduction to both the song and the album slowly builds up and then peels back, transforming into one of the catchiest pop tunes I've ever heard. As the album goes on, it continues to present a cohesive theatrical mood that truly feels like it was inspired by the characters and setting of A Midsummer Night's Dream. The next comparison here is less exact, but I feel that this album shares a few similarities with Yes's Close to the Edge. The vocal styles on both albums stick out as similar, and the densely layered waves of sound provide a surreal escape. Like in Close to the Edge, the songs here circle around and around before their routine is blown away by a wall of sound and refreshed. Many of the instruments used on both albums also have a similar tone. The lyrics of this album stick out to me as well. They are love songs, but not songs of undying, passionate love or breakups. Instead, they speak of new love or love that hasn't happened yet. I really appreciate Animal Collective's decision not to be overly serious and introduce somber elements to an otherwise upbeat psychedelic pop album. The music, however, is ultimately what makes this an exemplary record. Despite being primarily electronic music, it does such a good job of using its electronic elements that you forget almost immediately. Rather than being the perfect soundtrack to a futuristic, postmodern dystopia like electronic music can often become, Merriweather Post Pavilion has just the right amount of spirit to distinguish itself by creating a warm, optimistic atmosphere with synthetic beats. This atmosphere suggests that Merriweather Post Pavilion is an album made for the summertime. Whether reading alone in my room while a fan quietly spins in the background, in a stationary car sharing bouts of laughter with my dearest friends, or camping beneath the windowed view of our infinite, breathtaking universe, I know I will spend countless summer nights enjoying Merriweather Post Pavilion's conjured magical forest, alongside the soothing lull of cicadas and crackling of campfires. In conclusion, I am impressed by the care and purpose that went into this album. It is one of the best albums I've recently listened to and deserves most, if not all, of the praise I've heard it given. I give Merriweather Post Pavilion an 8.5 out of 10. Because of how unique Animal Collective are, I had a very hard time recommending similar artists. But if you want a similar album, I recommend checking out Swim by Caribou or Age of Odds by Sufjan Stevens. The albums I've enjoyed the most this week are Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, Oh Inverted World by The Shins, and Altered State by Tesseract. I've included links to my music website profiles and more resources for this album in the description. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more or leave feedback in the comments. I'm Attic, and this is Asclepius Rooster.